Hi, this is a summary of Joseph Butler's sermon number 4 entitled Upon the Government of the Tongue. And the Bible verse for this sermon is James chapter 1, verse 26, which says, If any man among you seem to be righteous, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. And so this sermon is about the vice of the tongue, or we could say the morals of speaking, the morals of speech. And so he divides the sermon up into two sections. The first one starts in roughly paragraph 2 or 3, where he says he's going to talk about the vice of the tongue, the vice of speaking. And in the second one begins in paragraph 6, where he focuses on what he calls the due government of the tongue. We might call that just the virtue of good speaking, proper speaking. So initially you might think, well, this is interesting. He's going to talk about how we use our speech to tear someone down, right? That must be the vice, or to destroy people or harm people. But he's actually, he says in the very first paragraph of the first part, this is paragraph number 3, he says that he's not interested in that at all. He says that's a topic for some other subject, or the investigation into other vices. What he's interested in here is something he calls talkativeness. Now, talkativeness is like it sounds, just being chatty, just not knowing when to stay quiet. And so he says, two people get together and they start talking and they don't know when to stop. And they're basically talking about nothing, but he says in paragraph number 3, they cannot go on forever talking about nothing. Eventually they stray onto topics that include things like scandal, divulging of secrets, defamation, and the like. He says these things aren't premeditated, they just happen, but nevertheless they're dangerous. Now you might say to yourself, this can't be all that bad. Why is he wasting so much time and energy on this topic when there seem to be so many other more important things to speak about or to preach about? But if you read paragraph number 5, he says he has some of the harshest words to say about that. He says, the tongue used in such a licentious manner is like a sword in the hand of a madman. It is employed at random, it can scarce possibly do any good, and for the most part does a world of mischief, and implies not only great folly and a trifling spirit, but great viciousness of mind, great indifference to truth and falsity, and to the reputation, welfare, and good of others. So these are very strong words. He takes this matter very seriously. Even later on in paragraph 11, he says that throughout history, many people have thought that certain topics matter very little, but in fact, they are, as he says it, some of the greatest evils have come from those things. And so he thinks this is obviously very important. The second part is about the virtue of proper speech, or where that virtue lies. And so he says that the chief purpose of the faculty of speech is to carry on the affairs of the world, to do business, to engage in education for learning and teaching. And secondly, a speech is about entertainment. We get together with friends, we talk. That's part of it. And that's good, he says. He says it's actually good to get involved in these kind of lighthearted conversations. He says it, quote, promotes humanity and good nature and civility. That's the end of paragraph 7. And he says that's good. However, the wise man, beginning of paragraph 10, the wise man knows when to keep quiet. So where's the line? What's the clear line between the virtue of lighthearted conversation, or talking or chatting like that, and crossing over into something much darker? He says in paragraph 14, he says the line is anything that's offensive to virtue, anything that's offensive to religion or good manners. This is what he calls the licentious, dissolute sort. So the moment it starts to stray into that kind of thing, we cross the line, conversation has now started to go downhill. And this is where evil sets in. So that's the line. What about just talking about others in general? He warns us in paragraph 16 that we should be aware of, because of our own competitiveness, because of our own tendency of rivalry with others, we should always be cautious about ever talking about someone else. He said perhaps we should just avoid it altogether. But he goes into the next paragraph saying that, but actually, virtue demands that society demands that we occasionally speak to others about someone's negative character traits in order to protect, so that they might be protected against the evil in somebody's character. It also says that we should also take the time to praise other people, talk to people about someone's particular virtues, because that will also benefit society. So it's a balanced view. It's not entirely dismissive against just having a conversation, just being talkative. But in there, he sees a vice, and the danger of it is found in the fact that we just like to talk. We like to talk a lot. So I do hope that was helpful to you, and we'll see you next time.